the aftermath of having your military presence in another country tells those people that we have enough to be in a position that we can even send our troops outside. So anybody who tries external aggression towards Kenya, they have to rethink. It is a deterrence measure to warn people that you cannot just come into Kenya. Any country across the globe can easily relate with Kenya because President Ruto has taken it upon himself to focus on a major issue that is global in terms of climate. He has not taken the holistic nature of conservation of power and conservation of the state, which Kibaki and Uhuru did to ensure, especially, and I want to refer to the issue about Somalia, because that was about, they were so much into military presence and the preservation of the state itself. President Ruto is not so much into preservation of the state as in terms of hard power, or what we would call as a real politique. And here I'm quick to say it is politique with K, not with C.
Ladies and gentlemen, Happy New Year and welcome to the second episode of GeoPulse Africa. My name is Mongai, your host, and it is good to see you in the new year again. With me here I have NGUGI GACHOKA, who is a political administrator and a political scientist by profession, who is also very enthusiastic on matters international affairs. Karibu sana, and looking forward to have a very productive discussion with you.
Thank you so much, Mongai, for having me. Indeed, I'm grateful.
Yeah, we begin by asking, and this is a question that I like asking, what is your opinion on Kenya's foreign policy under President Ruto? Basically, how would you rate him, especially having come under President Uhuru Kenyatta, who people regard as very stoic when it comes to matters diplomacy and international relations?
For me, I would categorically say that President Ruto's diplomacy can only be described using one word: assertive. Uhuru's was what I would call as an integration model, a diplomatic engagement that could largely be viewed as integrative. But Ruto's is assertive, going back from Kibaki's, which was coming on from isolation point of view. We headed to Uhuru's, which was an integration part of like a model of diplomacy. Then we headed to Ruto's, which is assertive. I would give it an assertive view of that diplomacy.
Well, assertive is, I think that's a very complex word, especially when you're referring to diplomacy. So what exactly do you mean by assertive diplomacy?
If you focused, we always argue that any particular theory must be able to predict, first of all, explain the current phenomenon, and then also predict what is going to happen in the near future. President Kibaki came in from a position that Kenya had largely been isolated in terms of regional balance, diplomatic engagements, following the regime that was before him, the Moi regime, which was coupled with a few things, among them assassinations. Kibaki came from a very isolated Kenya in terms of geopolitics, trying to get the right footing, whether it's on the west, on the east, and having made his state visits to the United States, also making a visit to China. All this was trying to revamp Kenya's diplomatic posture when it comes to relationships with other countries, which had dilapidated. Uhuru, on the other side, was more of regional integration. He was very vocal in ensuring that Kenya and its neighbors were in good terms. Remember, he vouched for the integration of DRC into the EAC community. He also tried to ensure that we have peace in Southern Sudan and Sudan. He was also key in ensuring that there is peace in Somalia, which mission had been started by his predecessor, President Kibaki. So President Uhuru was more into regional integration. within the Eastern Africa and some part of the southern part. President Ruto, on the other hand, goes out into what we'd call economic diplomacy. While Uhuru and Kibaki were into infrastructure, coming up of infrastructure and trying to bring something for the country, Ruto goes out there in terms of economic diplomacy and goes out of the region, which is Eastern Africa. He has taken a very high moral ground on climate justice, which the predecessor did not focus on that. With the issue about climate justice, he has been able to keep a balance between the East and the West, because this is something that is touching on all the countries. Unlike the Uhuru's and Kibaki's maybe military presence in Somalia, which would ordinarily get to have friends of Kenya, maybe from West, who are funding us through weapons and military strength. Climate justice has ensured that any country across the globe can easily relate with Kenya, because President Ruto has taken it upon himself to focus on a major issue that is global in terms of climate. He has not taken the holistic nature of conservation of power and conservation of the state, which Kibaki and Uhuru did to ensure, especially, and I want to refer to the issue about Somalia, because that was about, they were so much into military presence and the preservation of the state itself. President Ruto is not so much into preservation of the state as in terms of hard power, or what we'd call as a real politique. And here I'm quick to say it is politique with K, not with C. So he's into economic diplomacy in terms of climate justice, that they can be able, anybody around the world can be able to relate with Kenya on that particular ground.
Well, okay. Yes. That's very interesting, and we'll get to actually interrogate what this climate or climate diplomacy means, because many would argue, and many have argued, a lot of scholars have argued, especially in the contemporary days, yes, post Ruto's presidency, that there was no means to an end. Like, we would not tell exactly what it is that the president is trying to achieve through this climate diplomacy. You know, this is something that's very opaque. We do not understand what exactly diplomacy is being practiced under this climate championship that President Ruto has actually endowed himself under. And this we will discuss. But you've spoken about economic diplomacy. And people want to understand in practical terms for Kenya, what is the manifestation of the economic diplomacy that you are referring to? Especially in the wake of an epoch where the economy is really not doing well in our country, where the economic state of our country has degraded, maybe because of other external factors. But in practical terms, what economic diplomacy has the president advocated and advanced at this point in time?
I want to give you a very practical example that when President Kibaki and President Uhuru Kenyatta were making advances and visits to the East, because the move to the East began with President Kibaki, it was more of getting loans, going to secure loans to come and be invested here in Kenya. President Ruto, on the other hand, has taken over what we would call, is normally regarded as public-private partnerships across the globe. It tries to ensure that as much as we might want to secure the loan to come and build infrastructure here, there is more to that loan. There is more integration in terms of labor, in terms of expertise between the country that the nation is getting the loan from, and where we are going to build and where we are going to grow in terms of infrastructure, because infrastructure at the end of the day is the backbone of any economy. So for him, I think he's more into, we do not just want to get the loan. Remember, he has been very vocal in terms of global financing for the global south, the financing, international financing for the global south. And he has been, the architecture. He has been saying that we need to shift our debt, we need to revamp and rethink our debt when it comes to IMF and World Bank. So, but he has been very, very careful with how that is being handled. That he's saying, we get the burden of debt, whereas we are the people who suffer the most from deterioration of the climate by countries who are well developed than us. So we get to pay the higher debt, we get to have the debt, we also get to pay that climate-wise, and our debt doesn't seem to get any better. So we need to restructure how we are going to get our debt for the global south, and that is something that the president, if that goes through, it will be one of his greatest achievements, and let me say greatest achievement by any countries on the global south, having restructured how we are going to the table in terms of finances under the World Bank and the IMF. So for this particular engagement, you can clearly see that the president does not want to engage with countries as states alone. He's going out there into the world of multilateralism. He wants to engage with organizations. He wants to engage with international bodies, and not states as the primary actors in international relations. He's out there trying to engage with non-state actors in international organizations, international relations. So that is his bill, that is his footing that he seems to take into economic diplomacy across the world, across the country. And I think he has seen the shortfalls of engaging with the state, between state and state in terms of debt. And now he believes if he brings out the issue, for example, if we have an issue with our debt structure with the country, normally other countries will not get involved into that particular negotiation. But when you bring about an international organization lending to countries in the global south, then you are going to whip emotions across countries in the global south that are going to raise their voice towards that particular debt structure. Yes. Now,
an interesting angle that you've taken, especially on multilateralism, that the president is putting to practice. There's something that people would want to understand from your perspective. You have said that the president has tried to avoid direct loans from states, and therefore he is engaging in PPPs, right? But these PPPs, would argue, are just a clever way. Is it? It's a means of concealing to the public that we are not taking loans, while in fact these are things that we will still pay. An example is the road from Rironi. It's under a PPP project. But if you read the terms to it, is that this is a road that Kenyans will pay to use, right? So what difference does it make from a direct loan that is taken from the state, or these loans that we are indirectly paying to individual companies of states in the east or the west? And what difference does that make to our economy? So that distinction, also in terms of informing the public, that distinction, what value does it add? And is it a clever way of practicing diplomacy? And does it also depart us from state to state interaction?
One, I would like to say that debt is debt. And the only measure or the only way to ensure that you are debt free is to grow your economy, to ensure that you can be able to fund your infrastructure development. However, we are privy to a few things that it does not mean that we cannot get into debt as long as we do not default. under the public-private partnerships, for example, under the Rironi Mausamit Road, the discussion is we have NSSF that is backing up the construction of the particular road. We are saying we do not want to go and borrow money, give us the money directly. We come and build and then raise our interest rates. But the discussion is, this is our backbone. This is what we have in terms of the money that we have in terms of collateral. Like this is our collateral. It might not be, we might not be able to get the money now, the whole of it to go and build because of what we have. But we can be able to say, this is our backbone, this is what is we are giving as collateral for the next 2 or 3, 4 years. In short, it's like taxing people for the next 10 years to build that particular road. The viability of that particular road should be what is in question, not the building of that particular road. The viability, what has necessitated the building of that particular road? How viable is it? For example, and I want to bring this into perspective when talking about the particular road. We have Talanta Stadium, which is said to be to the tune of 48 billion. But in terms of interest rates, to go to beyond 100 billion.
100 plus,
If you are to build if you are to choose something to take loan for, between Talanta Stadium and the road from Rironi all the way to Mausamit, what would you as an individual or as a country decide to invest your loan in? That road from Rironi, if you use that road all the way to Mausamit, is a transnational road. It opens the country to other destinations, to other countries. So if the viability of that particular road and that loan can be repaid in a few or 2-3 years, or even 10 years, I think it should be something that we can be able to say. Because once you start with debt directly, if you go and loan directly, the interest rate, immediately, you're going to find yourself that in the next particular year, you need to start, or after 5 years or 2 grace years period, you're starting to repay that particular loan. But with the public-private partnership, I think it is easier to have, you're saying, we have this is what we are offering, but the other government is offering this, or the other entity is offering this. So you realize the loan that you're going to acquire is less as compared to going to get an overhaul of a debt to come and build a road.
Okay.
That is a discussion between the public-private partnership and the other direct loaning or getting a loan to come and build the road. However, I must at this particular point give caution that we need to have transparency in debt. As a country, if we are going to move forward, we need to be as transparent as possible in terms of how much we owe other people out there or in the country. We need to have either a policy or a directive on how we are going to repay this loan and decide by when should we regard ourselves as debt-free. If currently our debt, I think, is to a tune of 10 trillion and above, we should ask ourselves by 2035, 10 years from now, should we be debt-free or what is our debt? We should not always be thinking about going out there to get more money. And secondly, we need to prioritize ourselves. What is more viable? What are we doing with our money? Because we can have the debt, yes, but what are we doing with the money? Is it something that will generate more income? Is it something that will generate something for the country? Because we have seen some projects that we got loan for, but currently they are dead. They don't seem to bring any value to the country. So, and we still pay for that particular debt. So we need, the conversation should not be around how much we owe, but what did we do with what we got?
Interesting. Now, I don't want us to delve very much on issues with debt because this is not an economic discussion. Eh? But there is something else that President Ruto has done in his international posture.
Yeah.
He has positioned Kenya as an anchor and an advocate of climate change.
Yeah.
And this is something that has been very new. Something that was not done by the previous regime, something that was unseen and unheard of during Kibaki's regime. But now here we have the president who is getting international platforms, and among the many things that he's doing for our country is that he is pushing and branding, giving Kenya a posture of a climate champion. There was a time Kenyans were really not perceiving exactly what the president was trying to achieve. And I think there is still that conundrum as to what are we achieving with the brandishing of the name a climate champion. So my question to you is, what do you think the president is trying to achieve? And what value does that bring to Kenya in the backdrop of what you've said, that we are the most affected with the climate effects and the climate change effects, but here the president is a climate champion with what I would say are minimal manifestations to it. What is the end to this objective that the president trying to meet here?
Mongai, we host UNEP.
Yes, I do.
We host the United Nations Environmental Program.
Yeah.
I mean, at the very least, what we should do is champion for environmental protection. And UNEP was not formed in another country, then it was transferred here. Originally, it was formed, then the lobbying was done, and it was established here in Gigiri.
Yeah.
So we also have UN Habitat, we have other organizations that are still coming in. At the end of the day, the issue about climate change is a discussion that is currently happening in the world, you like it or not. It's there, it's happening. And remember that in diplomacy, power is always the interest. At the end of the day, the single interest of any state, when we say, actors in international relations, which normally are states, is power. What is wrong with President William Ruto focusing on issues to do with the climate change, of which, and I'm not a specialist when it comes to climate and whatever is happening, but I believe the president can clearly see that there is a discussion that is happening around the globe on the challenges that the nations are facing. It might be scientists, it might be environmentalists who are saying that, look, this is what we are facing, and we would like to do this and this and this. But the president, on the other hand, is saying, we are the champions of climate change. We started the 10 billion, I think it was 10 billion tree planting agenda. We want to be the people who are championing for climate change. Of course, that comes with resources. If you are given a leadership role in the globe, that comes with resources, that comes with access, that comes with power. You can be able to shape your interest in terms of that particular direction. If there is money that is to be channeled to a country like you, it means it's good. And I'm glad, I must give shout out to someone like Trufena, who was out there defending what we call as indigenous trees. So let us not be a country that we are always pessimistic about progresses. And I mean, as long as there is no loan that is being taken to champion for climate change, personally, I'm okay if we are not out there going to get debt to champion for...
But in diplomacy, there is nothing for free. We might imagine that there is no loan being taken, but something surely has to give.
There was, I remember there was a discussion about a company, I think, that had been denied access in the country to be able to get carbon credits.
Yes.
There was a company there's such a company that I think there was something in court or something about how that company was denied access to be able to collect carbon credits.
Yeah.
But the discussion that arose from there was that you cannot be the only company that will collect carbon credits. I mean, what about if we give you the licenses? What about the other? You see, unlike roads or buildings, you cannot say that this climate is not going to transfer from here to here. So we don't want to say that we are independent. You know, we don't live in isolation. We don't want to say that we are safe by ourselves. I mean, if there is any good that can come from Kenya championing for climate change, I mean, let's be open and support it. But then it should also be open out there that we are championing this in pursuit of so and so, in pursuit of this and that. But the downside of that is this. We should also be told if there is something on the downside, then we are told, guys, Kenyans, do you support this? But I think it's a good initiative to be in a position that you are championing for climate change and you are saying, okay, we are less developed because let's agree. Climate change mostly is on global warming. It's about adaptation. It's about violation of the weather and the climate and how we are moving on. If they are, and that is coming from developed countries. If we are the one who are suffering more from global warming, from adverse effects of industrialization, I think other countries have gotten to a point now that because of how they've been unable to protect their ozone or their environment, the only remaining savior is in Africa. And for some reason, it seems to come from Kenya. So I think it's a good initiative. It's about protecting the environment. If it's about championing for the next generation, I mean, sustainable development goals, that we should not only be able to invest for ourselves here and live, but we should also be mindful of the future generations.
Well, the thing is that the intentions might be very good. I mean, but the opacity that accompanies the intentions is what Kenyans really question. Because you remember this whole climate change issue gave us a free holiday. So how easy is it to get a free holiday? That's what I'm saying, that sometimes something has to give. But what Kenyans do not understand is that what give, you see? And that has not been very clear. That is why the president is known as a climate champion outside. But in this country,
what is the president's degree?
What do you mean?
I mean, what did he study?
He studied ecology.
And?
But you know, he's not the president for himself.
No,
he represents.
I agree. He represents the country.
Yes.
But you see, even when we are coming up with government, and I want to take this so that even as we are heading to elections, people realize that the direction that the president is always the lead diplomat.
He's the diplomat.
He's the lead diplomat.
Without a doubt.
And the president, despite being a lead diplomat, he himself is an individual. He went to school, he studied, he has the knowledge, he has everything. President Kibaki was an economist. You can see how economy did. President Uhuru was a political scientist and also an economist by virtue of Amherst University College. You can see the foreign policy we undertook. So currently we have President Ruto who either did ecology or things to do with conservation and everything. So we shouldn't, per se, we should not criminalize or we should not deviate from the fact that our lead diplomat is intellectually geared towards that particular perspective. Yeah, so I mean, we have had economic diplomacy doing well. We have had our diaspora diaspora diplomacy doing well under Uhuru.
Yes.
I mean, it's time now environmental diplomacy does well too.
Do you think it has done well?
No, I think the fact that we are talking about it, the president is doing something.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, why is it that we are not talking about cultural diplomacy? He's still doing it because we have individuals who have been sent outside the country to go and work to secure spots to be able to live well and earn a living. That's still under cultural diplomacy. But I mean, we have 5 pillars of Diplomacy, we have
yeah.
cultural, we have environmental, we have peace diplomacy, we have economic, and the other one, I think there is another one.
Yeah, political diplomacy.
Yeah, so economic diplomacy was there under President Kibaki. The other one was under Uhuru. Now we have environmental diplomacy.
Wow.
Yeah. So while we are choosing about the other government, maybe we should also look at which of the other pillars of diplomacy have we not met, and look at who is giving us the other pillar.
We will. It's a matter of observation.
Yeah.
Now, I want us to shift gears and discuss about now something that's a bit general.
Yeah.
In regards to Kenya as a country.
Yeah.
Forgetting about, although we cannot really put away the head of state from this, but the international world order has changed in this century, and the world has tended to become very multipolar. That is why it is even difficult to understand whether Kenya is facing the East today or the West, because of how multipolar the world has become. So every country essentially is as important as it comes. Now, Kenya, without a doubt, has been positioning itself as a regional anchor, not only in East Africa, but also in Africa. So I want you to help us understand what is the place of Kenya in the evolving multipolar world. Where are we? And where are we looking in the coming like 10 years? Yeah.
Wow, that's quite an engagement, but
yeah.
It is true that the world has really changed in terms of balance of power, all the way coming from when we had countries like Germany, France, Britain, the Soviet Union, the United States, all the way to the advent of Cold War. And now we are in a very multipolar world, as we would like to put it, of which it is still a question that we need to answer. Are we really into multipolar, or we have a few countries? Do we have any country in Africa that can be termed as a country that shifts polarity in the international system? It's still something that we need to discuss.
Yeah.
Essentially, the world seems to be divided into two, either the West or the East.
You still believe we are in a bipolar
system? I want to say that I have not seen something that shows me clearly that we've shifted from the bipolar system. Because, and this is what I mean, the current discussions across the world is always, which side are you leaning? It doesn't matter whether you are well developed or otherwise. I mean, we have countries like the one country saying that we are going to occupy the other. So in a multipolar system, would we have something like that? We have one country saying that we are going to buy that particular country. We have another country that has instigated war on another country. Actually, two of the major world leaders in terms of balance of power, they are making advances towards the other countries. But nobody seems to talk about it. They seem to have a field day. And the United States says they are going to buy Greenland. They invaded, was it Vietnam?
Yeah.
The president was captured?
Venezuela.
Venezuela. Sorry, Venezuela. We have Putin on the other side of the world, currently making advances towards Ukraine, and they have been in war for quite some time. So in a multipolar world, we should be having a third force that has already stopped that. However, in the place of Kenya's politics, I always refer to Kenya's foreign policy and the foreign stance. I try as much as possible to start with President Kibaki.
Yeah.
And President Kibaki tried to ensure, when he came around, he realized now, getting loans from the West, there were so many human, what we call as human attachments, human conditionalities, attachments from the West, that we're going to give you loans, but we need these rights and this one, adhered to. So when President Kibaki came, he led the way to the east, to China, because China did not come with human rights conditionalities. For the 10 years, he tried as much as possible to shift Kenya towards the east. The 2007 also messed our relationships with the West because of the human interest and also the human rights. So individually, as a country, President Kibaki still went to east. When President Uhuru came, remember he was under ICC case. And he tried as much as possible because he believed that this was a Western court. It was something that showed adversaries towards African leaders. Remember, he tried as much as possible to rally members of the African continent against the ICC court. And he successfully did that. That the whole African continent tried as much as possible to support President Kenyatta, while President Kenyatta tried to show that this is an attack on Kenya's sovereignty. So he also went to east. However, after he was let go, he carefully, and I love the diplomacy of President Kenyatta, he carefully mended those ties with the West. He went there, he met President Donald Trump, we had President Obama coming here. So this particular model of diplomacy, from where President Kibaki left, we did try to proceed with that trajectory towards the east. But President Uhuru also ensured that where we had gone down in terms of our relationships with the West, we tried to mend those boundaries and ensure that we had, not necessarily in terms of getting development and loans from that particular angle, but that relationship was still there. Now, something funny happened with President Ruto when he came around. He got 2 state visits. He got a state visit in the United States, and he also got a state visit in China.
In the Republic of China,
yeah? State visits are quite different from official visits. They include full military honors, trade agreements, a whole lot of diplomatic, presidential escorts and accolades. But remember, it was during that time that also, when President Uhuru was leaving power, Kenya had gotten a slot as a non-permanent member to the United Nations Security Council.
UNSC.
UNSC. Essentially, elevating Kenya's position in terms of security and in terms of power, and having a say in the United Nations Security Council, which is the most powerful segment or organization of the UN. So that one had showed that Kenya's power in terms of the global South has taken its stand. But then something else happened when the President Ruto came in. Kenya was termed as a non-major ally to NATO. So those ones, UN, you like it or not, I try to perceive it as more Western, and also NATO is more Western. So, but President Ruto also went to China and talked about a restructuring of the finance model, which actually led the United States to say they need to rethink their relationships with Kenya in terms of what they had agreed. After that, because the Chinese state visit was after the American. And also that is another thing that we need to agree, why United States visit came before Chinese. Because in diplomacy, precedence is taken on a very serious note. I remember during that particular period, the government spokesperson was asked, why is Kenya in all of this? And he said that Kenya, we are taking an unaligned position. Not from the West, not from the East, but we are pursuing what is best for Kenya.
But that was just textbook, because really.
But he's the government spokesperson, so he said that we are taking an unaligned position. We are only doing what is best for Kenya. So currently, as we are speaking, there are serious considerations that I believe this particular government is taking into course. Number one, the issue about climate change, as championed by President William Ruto, is squarely under our environmental diplomatic pillar. And it seems to attract a lot of interest from the West. But when we are talking about economic diplomatic pillar, it seems to attract a lot of attention from the East.
Yeah.
So I would like to say that for some reason, and President Ruto having gotten both states visit, one, it seems that both powers are interested in Kenya. Remember, for the longest we've been termed as the green city under the sun, and also the haven of peace in a war-torn area. There was a time it's only Kenya which did not have conflict. We had Somalia, we had Ethiopia with the Tigray problem, we had Tanzania, we had Uganda, we had Rwanda. So we were the only country at that particular time that we are seen as the beacon of hope. So anybody who wants to make entrances to these countries, they have to come through Kenya. So it's very imperative that we remain in that particular situation as an unaligned country. Currently, yes, we are a major ally to NATO. That helps us with power, military power, I would like to say. But in terms of economic power, seems like we are leaning more to the East. So I can confidently say, from my point of view, that we are not yet there as an unaligned state, but we are actually heading there as an unaligned state. Now, the downfall of that is that as the world shifts, because you had asked about multipolar, and under multipolar, it is international organizations that tend to have the middle ground. They want to ensure that power is not limited to a single country. That came with UN and those organizations and the EU. But you see now, what Trump is doing, he has withdrawn so much support from international organizations by making United States great again. So he's rebuilding by President Trump saying, we want to make America great again. He's saying, we want to get our power back. The power that we had ceded to international organizations that we are funding. Now we want to bring it back. We've realized, and this is not, do not mean that this is what he's saying specifically, but from a theoretical point of view, he's saying, we have ceded too much power to the United Nations, whereas other members of the United Nations have not ceded that power. So we want to take our power back. So we are not moving, we are not even in a multipolar world. We were heading there, but it seems that we've taken a few steps back and we are heading now to a bipolar system.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, that's an interesting analysis, and I think we should spare some time and just understand how sustainable is Trump's attempt to regain the power that the United States had. Now, first that he's serving his second term, I presume that the Republicans are also getting quite unpopular. So the question would be how sustainable his attempt to take power and consolidate it to the United States is. But before we discuss that some other time, you've said there is a lot of interest with Kenya, and that is why Kenya is giving very mixed signals. We cannot authoritatively refer to ourselves as people of the West.
Yeah.
we cannot also refer to ourselves as people of the East. In fact, in my own view, I see that our relations with the East in this regime under President Ruto has really shrinked. In fact, we've seen it very scantily, only on PPPs, but not aggressively mending relationships with the East. So my question is, why do you think there's so much interest to Kenya? Is it of what you refer to as Kenya as a country that enjoys a lot of peace and appears fairly stable? Or is it because of the resources that we have, because you realize that we also have a lot of unexploited resources? We have, the oil in Turkana has never been exhausted. Actually, the oil in Turkana up to today cannot be said to have been extracted. That's a resource that has never been exploited. We have a lot of resources in Eastern, the likes of Kitui and Machakos. And this is now information that is emerging the public. And therefore, the argument would be, probably we are not even attracting that attention from both the East and the West because we are a country that enjoys peace and fairly stable or seen as regional leaders, but because of the resources that countries think that they can still exploit from us. Why do you think we are attracting this attention?
Definitely, I would definitely say that we do not have resources that would actually focus the intention of the United States to focus so much on Kenya. If you look at our resources compared to what the United States can people, those people, President Trump went to Venezuela and said they're going to get oil from there. They took the president and took the oil. We do not have the oil deposit like Venezuela. So the issue about resources is neither here and there about countries, the interest. No, the discussion is the gateway to Africa. The gateway to Africa.
So is that a strength or a weakness? Are they seeing as a... you see, if people can use you to access Africa...
No, now in diplomacy we don't want to say use. We just want to say we are a gateway. It's very undiplomatic to say you are using us, but I think we always say we are a gateway. But I think the discussion in terms of interest on my end is not about the resources we have. What resources do we have that would warrant so much attention from the United States, almost 10,000 kilometers away from where we are? We have countries with oil deposits like Kuwait. They have enormous oil deposit. We have not seen the US making advances there. But the discussion is we are the gateway to Africa and the gateway to DRC. DRC beats us in terms of minerals, in terms of resources. So, and actually, all the way from the Horn of Africa, all the way from the other end, Nigeria. Remember, we have an uprising in Nigeria is not so well.
Yeah.
So I believe that Kenya, it's easier to go through Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, and DRC. Okay, get the resources there, and still use the same route. So, our beacon of hope and our strategic position from my angle is not necessarily because we are so good, and they would actually strive as much as possible to ensure that if there is discomfort in the Kenyan political system, it is sorted very fast.
Yeah.
They will invest heavily to ensure that there is peace, not necessarily for us, but because that is their gateway. That is why you see there is also not so much interference with Ugandan politics.
Yeah.
Because if they interfere with Ugandan politics and Museveni blocks that end, then that's done. So let us not say that it's necessary that they are so much interested with us. I think the access to DRC is a major issue that world powers will try to ensure that Kenya is at peace. Remember, we have the military muscle in terms of East African countries. So we are able to control, in case there is any political uprising, any military uprising towards Kenya, they can easily get in, stop it, to ensure that that gateway is not closed. Secondly, in diplomacy, there is what we call as dean or the doyen. In embassies and ambassadors field, we have someone known as the doyen or the dean, just like universities. But now the dean is normally the longest serving ambassador in that particular country. For example, in Kenya we have approximately to a tune of maybe 100 diplomatic missions in Kenya. These diplomatic missions, we have the longest serving ambassador in all of them. Let's say there are 100. So we have an ambassador who came here in 2005 or 2008. He's the longest serving ambassador. He automatically becomes the doyen, in short, the dean of all the other ambassadors. In other countries, it's the representative of the Vatican who becomes the dean because they are seen as non-aligned. So the same case with Kenya. We've become the doyen of peace for so long. We've not had uprising. So we are given that title of the doyen or the dean of the region, the dean of peace in the Horn of Africa. It is a ceremonial, prestigious title, so that we pride ourselves as the dean, as the doyen of peace, and we want to stay there. I'm not saying that we should have war, but I'm saying, war is the absence of peace. So for the longest, we have been a peaceful country. So anybody who wants to get to Africa, they've told you go through South Africa, Nigeria, and Kenya. Once they compare at the volatility of those countries, they say, no, let's deal with Kenya. So our interests, and I think for people who are representing us out there and even our lead diplomat, we should always remember that each country in the international system is always pursuing power. And power is the ultimate interest for any country. There is no single day that America or the Russians or the Britons will ever do something for the benefit of the Kenya without their own benefit first. We should always ask ourselves, what is there for Kenya anywhere we are going? So let us not say that we pride ourselves as the pride of peace or the doyen of the Horn of Africa, whereas there is nothing that we're getting. I believe individually that this country has everything for everyone. It's only that the people who have been bestowed with the mandate to share, they tend to be gluttonous. They tend to be sometimes careless with public resources. That's why we have wastage of commodities, milk, potatoes in Rift Valley and Central, whereas we have people dying of hunger in Turkana and Garissa and Mandera. We have enough resources for everyone. It's only that those people who have been given the mandate to distribute, and what we call distributive justice, they tend to be careless with the distributive justice. So let us not be blinded by the fact that there was, I think it was Mwalimu Nyerere who said, if you ever hear them praising me, just know I've sold you out.
Yeah, it is Mwalimu.
It was Mwalimu. So if we always hear of Kenya being told this and that, you are good, we should always ask ourselves, are we good for them? Are we good for ourselves?
Yeah. Well, and this is even this is an issue about this is a moral lesson. You have to raise your eyebrows. You have to be very skeptical. When people tell you how good you are. It could mean two things. It could actually mean that you're good. Or number two is that it's a manipulative sentiment to abuse you.
Is either you are good at something or good for something.
Yeah. So it could be a manipulative sentiment to abuse in the future. You've spoken really well about that aspect of Kenya being very good. and being at the dean or the beacon of hope in our region.
Yeah.
And that elicits a question that I've always been pondering about.
Mm.
Yes, we are a beacon of hope, and therefore, having assumed that mediation posture, we have attempted to calm the situation in Sudan. We have attempted to become peacemakers in the Ethiopian war. We have tried to manage the situation in Somalia through means like the Linda Inchi. But then diplomatically speaking, one would tend to ask, Kenya assuming the responsibility of a peacemaker is strengthening our soft power, right? But then other scholars would argue that that is exposing us geopolitically. That is setting us up geopolitically. It has geopolitical risks in it. In your own view, do you think us being peacemakers is strengthening our soft power or exposing ourselves geopolitically?
The issue about Kenya, and we must always be alive to the circumstances that led us to get to Somalia, get involved with the situation in South Sudan, and the situation with Ethiopia. And going back, there are issues with Uganda also, in terms of what we'll call remember we had an issue with Side Bare, with the Northern Frontier District.
Mm.
They wanted to cut part of coast, the part of northern Kenya, to go to Somalia. We also had an issue with these guys, or Uganda, who wanted to get part of Kenya all the way to Naivasha.
Yeah, you can also remember the Lemi Triangle.
Yeah. So the issue of external aggression are never taken easily and lightly in international relations. Kenya has for so long been, before 2011, we have always been respectful of the principle of non-interference in international relations. We have always said we don't want to interfere. But now when it came to the issues of external aggression, the flow of Al-Shabaab to coastal parts of Kenya and other parts, although there is always contention on how we got to Somalia, were we invited or did we invade Somalia? Were we invited by the government? Did we invade Somalia? There's always a contention on our entry. We were invited in South Sudan to go and try and mediate the peace process there. But in Somalia, the biggest challenge was that there are people who felt we invaded Somalia. The locals, there are those who felt this is not an issue of you protecting your country, it's about you invading our country. So the retaliation attacks some came from locals who felt this did not come to save us. They are coming here. Remember we had the issue with the charcoal and other things being said about Mogadishu, sure. And using that area for economic purposes. So we must always be careful when it comes to our relationship with other countries, and also where our military is involved. It's easy to whip emotions amongst locals and tell them we have been invaded. That's why we have had issues in Afghanistan with the US. The locals feel we have been invaded. So and that's why you see the South Sudan peace process has been quite good, I would say, has been quite instrumental, and you can clearly see the steps being taken because we were invited there to mediate. The Tigray issue also, but the Somali leaves a question of whether we invaded or we were invited there.
Or now, we were protecting our sovereignty. You know, that is also the responsibility of the state to protect these people.
Yeah, but you see, it is possible we would have a military, we could establish a military protection layer across our border and not get into Somalia. But the discussion was you see, we were not having the fight with the Somali government under Somalia. We were not having fights with the Somali government. We had Al-Shabaab rebels. Okay? So what would other theorists would have argued is we need to strengthen our borders. We need to strengthen our intelligence to ensure that Al-Shabaab activities are not flowing to Kenya. But what we did, we went in. So were we invited by Somali government, or did we invade to go and attack the Al-Shabaab? And President Kibaki did well to protect our nation, but I think the aftermath of that is what we've seen with Westgate, with Garissa University. Those attacks, mostly in international relations, there are those who have argued that is because there were some locals who felt we invaded. Agreed, So, by going to Somalia, by going to countries like Sierra Leone and having General Pande lead peacekeeping missions we have other areas. We also have troops in Haiti. So it is prestigious. It elevates our position as Kenya into a powerhouse. But it also serves as a deterrence measure to countries who might want to invade Kenya. We are telling them, before you decide, and you've seen Twitter handles of someone's son saying they want to invade Kenya, but they've been put into silence very fast. The aftermath of having your military presence in another country tells those people that we have enough to be in a position that we can even send our troops outside. So anybody who tries external aggression towards Kenya, they have to rethink. It is a deterrence measure. It is a deterrence measure to warn people that you cannot just come into Kenya. We are well equipped. We have the capacity to protect ourselves to an extent that now we are even helping other countries. So under diplomacy and under state power, it is prestigious to have your military outside. It serves as a deterrence by other adversaries who would want to come and visit Kenya. So it's good to open your borders and go outside there. But it does not mean that we are opening ourselves up geopolitically and that we are destroying our power. For me, I think it's a good thing. But we always need to choose our battles wisely. We need to be in a position, we need to ask ourselves, if we find ourselves in the position that we are going to help others, who will come in for us? That is the first question we should always ask. If we find ourselves, God forbid, in a situation like Haiti, or in a situation like Somalia, who are the first people, who are the first responders to our country? Those are the people we should strengthen our military relationships with.
Okay. Yeah. Now, I want us to now close this discussion.
Yes.
I know things about sovereignty and preserving that territorial integrity are very expansive issues, and these are things that are widely written about, so we might not exhaust, but we'll spare some time and talk about them, especially the conundrum of whether indeed we invaded Somalia or we were invited. Because in the long run, both countries needed peace, So could it be a question of invasion or invitation? That will discuss some other day.
Remember, the Somali government was formed here.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was indeed formed here.
Yeah, it was indeed formed here.
That again leads us to the question. Is did we really invade?
Yeah, because we have Somali government formed here.
Yes.
And remember, we have Somalia and we have Somaliland.
Yes.
Those are two different discussions. So, because now, sorry to cut you short, but for now, if we decide to withdraw our troops from Somalia, what does that say? Remember, there is a time, I think one of the countries, one of our neighbors withdrew troops from Somalia.
Yeah.
But now what does it mean for Kenya if we decide to withdraw? Does it mean we have ceded power, or does it mean we
have
are now
won
safe?
the war?
Yeah. That is now another discussion, because you see, if it's between government and government, for example, you just let the government establish itself, say we are okay now, we
you
leave.
can now withdraw.
Yeah, we can now withdraw.
Yes.
But for us, what do we do if we withdraw the military in Somalia?
It has a dent on us.
Yeah. Does it mean that we've left? Does it mean that now, what was our long-term plan with Somalia, apart from stopping? Because remember, it was a brewing hotspot for Al-Qaeda and Al-Shabaab activities that were happening around that area. So that's why they were able to subdue the government at that particular time in Somalia. So we went there, and that's why we tried to help from government here to go and ensure that there is now government there. Because initially it was hard for us to be able to engage with who was in charge of Somalia. But the question now, I think, that would be lingering in the minds of military scientists and diplomats. What next if we decide to withdraw our troops from Somalia? And should we have a base? How are we going to protect that border? Because by having our troops in Somalia, it ensures that Al-Shabaab activities are not stopped at the border, but they are stopped from there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. That discussion is for some other time.
Yeah.
Finally, there's a new concept that is referred to as a paradiplomacy. A paradiplomacy, in simple terms, is to envisage how counties are also advancing their diplomacy.
Yeah.
Now, the Constitution of 2010 granted counties immense power. Counties are very powerful, because you would want to understand that there are roles and mandates that they are bestowed autonomously. One of the roles that I find too fundamental for the counties hold is health, agriculture, and so on and so forth. But now the resources accompanying these mandates are minimal. They do not match the depth of the responsibility. It means that they either have to rely on own source revenue, which in most times is not enough, or wait for resources coming from the national government. And in most times, these resources come in very late. So what counties have resorted to doing is that they have started sourcing international partnerships and resources from other actors outside our borders. Now, this is incoherent with our national foreign policy, because the responsibility and the role of reaching out to state actors outside our borders is a preserve of the state. But now we have a clash, because county governments and the national governments are chasing the same partners to serve the same people. This concept is referred to as a paradiplomacy. So do you think it is time counties or other county governors are also integrated within the Kenyan diplomatic architecture? Or if yes, do you see a point where there will be a lot of competition instead of complementary whatever? Instead of them complementing each other, will be competing each other, or this is something that can actually be worked out?
Issues to do with diplomacy, they are too complex to be left in the hands of 47 people. And this, with utmost respect, we have seen what has been happening with the Council of Governors and the Senate. We do not want to subject our country to 47 different policy directions outside the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I would say this, because the governors and the county, let me say the county governments are out there to try and get more resources for the people and for the functions. It is upon the national government to ensure that first, the county governments understand the Kenya's foreign policy as it is today. Secondly, it is important for the governors and the county governments themselves and via the Intergovernmental Relations Committee to ensure that the county governments at the end of each election cycle, they tend to understand the manifesto of the government that has come into force, so that they do not find themselves in a position that they have to directly engage international partners, primarily on foreign policy. There is a reason as to why the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Ministry of Defense, those ministries are not devolved. They are the custodians of our relationships with the outside world, whether in terms of economy, in terms of military power. They are too complex to be left in the hands of 47 outlets of information and engagements. We cannot have such a situation. Firstly, I've not seen the reason as to why counties would directly need to engage with countries under para-diplomacy. Not because there is no need, but because over time we have eroded the little that we have. The international agreements and treaties, they are so structured that there is a clear line of monitoring, evaluation, feedback, and engagements all through. We have seen rampant mismanagement of public resources with the county governments. So far as 55 million shillings used, I think, withdrawn from one sector of the county government to go and fund something, 5 million withdrawn from a county government's kitty to go for housewarming somewhere. We've seen
early Christmas.
Yeah, early Christmas.
September.
We've seen someone lighting up Christmas tree, I think, for how much? We do not want to subject ourselves to such shame internationally. We need first to keep our house in order. Then international partners, because they have their embassies here. They have diplomats here who live in some of these counties. We have diplomats residing in Kiambu County. We have diplomats residing in Nairobi County. These diplomats tend to consume also our information that is out there for the public. I think it's important that before, it's a new paradigm that we should agree, yes, we can explore, but before that we need to put our house in order. There's too much rampant misuse of the public resources that I feel we do not want to subject our country to such shame internationally. So, going by what we are seeing in Senate, the unearthing of the disadvantages that our people are subjected to by some of the county governments, I feel we need to be more strict with governors when they are putting out their best foot forward, because this will not be termed as a Turkana foreign policy towards Australia. It will not be termed as Nakuru's foreign policy towards Vietnam. It will not be termed as narrow policy, foreign policy towards Argentina. No. It will always come up as a Kenya's foreign policy towards that particular country. Secondly, I believe if we were more structured as a government, an entity such as the Council of Governors, collectively, if they were more structured and well, like they had clear structures that you can be able to follow up, it is an entity that can be given a mantle to engage with partners on the basis of devolved functions, specifically. For instance, we might have a partner who would like to come in and support or get into an arrangement in terms of building hospitals, level 4 hospitals, or equipping them. That should not be something that a governor does individually, via to another country. It should be so structured that it should be through the Council of Governors. For example, if you have, let me give an example of Japan International Cooperation Agency, JICA. If they want to support initiatives in Kenya, it's always G to G. It's always from government to government. JICA cannot come and pump money into
a county.
Let me say, into an organization without involvement of Kenyan. Even if that money, mostly I think it will come either through consolidated
fund.
Fund. Then that money is distributed via the Kenyan government.
Yeah.
So we should have gone to that area, but I kind of feel that our structures, our mismanagement of resources, the system might be going up to that particular level, but we still have loopholes with how, we have not even seen clear relationships between a county and a county. We've not seen tangible results between, for example, Kitui County government, where we have, or the counties in the eastern where we have mangoes, where we have fruits, with a county like Nakuru, where we have potatoes, vegetables. We have not seen what we'd call a structured engagement to ensure that these counties can reap from the endowment of their resources in the subsequent devolved units. So if such a simple thing that is within our boundaries have not been achieved, relationship between a county and a county, that we have seamless relationship between Narok and Bomet, like we are looking out to what are the advantages that Bomet can get from. I think we should start from there. Then we can grow as we head forward, because that is an enormous responsibility to have engagements and direct engagements, which automatically will be seen as Kenya's position on some of these engagements, whether it will be on health, on agriculture. So it's a new paradigm, but we have some steps to take.
I also think that it's an area that can be explored, but we have first of all to work on the systems and the structures so that they can be properly defined.
Indeed.
So I think, as you've rightly put it, that we need to first of all attain county-to-county diplomacy within our borders. Before we scale without our borders.
Indeed.
Thank you very much, GACHOKA.
Welcome.
For sparing in time. I need to get this right because I think I misplaced it a bit. So it's a political scientist and a public administrator with interest in international affairs. Thank you so much for sparing in time and for your insights and for your nuggets. So viewers, thank you very much for joining in and being part of our discussion. Looking forward to our third episode on GeoPulse Africa. My name is Mungai. See you.